I want to let you know that I'm picking up this topic with nothing to be done with reference to technologies. I'm not meaning that we are not interested in technology. However, I want to bring back the focus to something more fundamental in change management. Um, so let's go. Apart from whatever Leela has mentioned, I'm also a very strong um, votary of the discipline to be followed in processes and the systems being implemented, which includes and is a prerequisite for a very good change management to be successful in any organization. Now let's see if all the organizations and us are all sailing smoothly in change management, or are we seeing too many hindrances, landmines as we go in the audit of change management? So let's dive into the session. The first point that I wanted to actually look at is why change management now, and it is such a run of a mill subject. What brings change management to the center of the table? Can I request participants or Leela to mute all, please? Personal conversations are happening while the call is going on. Leela, can I request you again to mute the participants, please? Thank you. So it's a run of a mill subject. So why today suddenly all of us are keen here? It's an evergreen subject. Like agriculture, it is the same to me. Without that, we can't survive, but it may not be fashionable to do agriculture as much as not very fashionable to only be in change management. So that's what is common, but it is foundational basis for our existence, and what we eat comes out of agriculture. In the same way, what we are in an organization is defined by how well is the change management done. This is also a very mundane job. Lot of bureaucracy involved, lot of processes involved, lot of procedures involved. Nobody owns it thoroughly and controls it thoroughly. At the same time, if a failure occurs, all hell breaks loose, and there are many who will run for shelter. They'll run helter and skelter. All these happen when things fail in change management. When does that happen? Nobody can tell. The nobody can tell why change management fails is because the organization is not in control of what happens in change management. That's exactly the reason, and we should see why it is so. And there are many reasons, and this time it's not going to be me talking. I'm going to bring up some controversial topics, subjects for discussion, questions, and debate. So in now let us see why it is become more important than ever. Now, apart from all the things that I said, that it's a mundane subject, organizations which govern change management, provide auditing guidelines, have been very solidly behind the work to be done. There are elaborate guidelines, very well defined audit process. Many organizations in the field do participate in this in form of issuing guidelines, policies, procedures, etc. I just quoted a few examples just for the heck of saying that I am not going to deal with anything procedural. What is the current process for this? Does ISACA give a guideline on this? Those issues are just not stuff that we should discuss. So there is a business application change. I'm only giving even there few examples. Internal Auditors Association has given wonderful guidelines. COBIT is one of the very wonderful tools if we really dive deep and use it for auditing change management. Regulators have been very um, control centric, very strong in defining what should be change management and the governance and the requirements of change management. I'm talking with reference to only IT and technology changes, not the organizational change as we call in, say, business process reengineering, say, a HR type of change management. We're talking of IT change management. Then even the ICAI and AICPA have given elaborate guidelines on change management. So support for reviewing change management guidance provided by various organizations. If you see ITGI provided COBIT, it has enormous extensive literature of guidance for management itself. It's not just about audit. So it's all control objectives, and those control objectives are for the management. So hands of management, teams that are functioning, technology management team, and auditors all have their hands full with what is required to conduct this business called change management. So there is no gap on that. Let's see just what is one definition so that we know that this is what is in that. I'm reading directly the italicized sentence, which is COBIT older version of Acquire and Implement 6. AI 6 talks good practices in the changes called manage changes. What does it say? All changes, including emergency maintenance and patches, relating to infrastructure and applications within the production environment, are formally managed in a controlled manner. Most important sentence, and that's the single sentence everybody should know and be driven with. All changes, including emergency maintenance and patches, relating to infrastructure and applications within the production environment, are formally managed in a controlled manner. So this is completely about the production environment. Changes, including those to procedures, process, system, and service parameters, are logged, assessed, authorized prior to implementation, reviewed against planned outcomes following implementation. They are also defining a brief process. This assures mitigation of the risks of negatively impacting the stability or integrity of the production. I'm highlighting those keywords. It is about production environment, it is about changes, and the whole objective is to ensure the stability or integrity of production system is not impacted adversely. That is what is the whole process of change management. Now, why this is so difficult if it is so straightforward in its definition and understanding? I'm, for fun, is to tell that I am not going to deal all these in this session, because you also have access for this. You know what should be read and what should need not be read. So COBIT provides all this AI6 manage changes, etc. Now, so something has changed very drastically. That change is still a difficult one. Not more than 20% of the organizations successfully move changes to production, which means 80% of the organizations fail, or at least if not fail, they redo a lot of stuff after change. So what has changed is that so much difficulty has been brought in. Today's business has many models. Globalization is all over. Even we are buying, sitting at home, things that are globally sold, not anymore from only neighborhood shops. There are many components that are moving in today's business, and quite frequently many outside systems and organizations are involved in our business of our organization. Therefore, it is another way of doing business. Too many outside organizations are involved. Increasing use of outsourcing. Today, they won't even blink an eye to say, let's outsource. If it is not the core business, or if it's not a core business prohibited by the regulator, organizations are very immediate in saying that they would like to outsource if that is not going to help them be more productive and manage it well. Many changes are happening in parallel. The the business has become very demanding. The IT, which used to be a back office earlier, is also strategic in nature, and much of the business, most organizations are only technology driven. There are very few organizations, when I say few organizations, which a CISA would be dealing with. I mean that way. Not that India has suddenly become the number one country in the world on GDP. I'm not saying that way. The people whom we are dealing, the organizations where we are working and dealing, are mostly um, dealing with only system based processes. Very few are manual anymore. I meant that way. A lot of it is manual, a lot of it is system based, and it has become strategic. The technology has become strategic in nature, and it is no more a back office shop. So the technology itself is driving how business would be done. What new opportunities in business come are also driven by technology. I mean only by department, but technology per se drives what business, what new opportunities are coming into play. So there are many changes in parallel happening because all the business departments are now dependent upon technology, and technology is changing very fast. Then multiple changes are being demanded naturally because many systems have come parallel. Many changes would also be coming parallel. And more important is all of these technologies have brought varieties of changes that have been to made to processes. Even the process itself is technology focused. So many changes, so many in parallel. Not single change management process would be um, able to manage it. So there are varieties of change management process for different types of changes, different technologies that are being used, methodologies being used in various organizations. And we'll fix a timeline as to what exactly, why these are all happening. Then synchronizing the change to go into production from various sites that the changes have been moved is another big issue that has to be understood. And over and above all, today's systems have to be available 365 days, 24 hours, all the 7 days. Let me give an example. The first condition I do when I go for any auditing engagement of discussion for auditing engagement, I'll ask, are your systems available to me for auditing any time in the day, any day of the week? If it is no, I prefer not to pick up that engagement. Not because that engagement is bad in any sense. Access to the systems as an auditor, the requirement has become 24 by 7. I may not, I pick up any time to do any review of any part of the system, sitting remotely from anywhere, and the systems that I am accessing should be accessible 365 days. If I am engaged in, if an auditor is asking this, naturally the business has existed 365 days, 24 hours by 7 days. That is the biggest change that has happened in the business world. And timing of the change, because it's almost that it is now or yesterday the change has to go in. The demand for that change has happened already many days ago, and it should have been done. So it is very difficult when these many changes are happening at a time parallel, and the demanding business is there. more than anything else, the demanding business is demanding because the customer has become very, very demanding. And that is what I highlighted at the bottom too. Fast changing technology and fleeting requirements. I, I chose to use those words for the reason that technology change also is not as fast as the requirements are changing. Therefore, it is fleeting requirements. And the pressure on the business is immense. The customer is in a minute changing the requirements. There is no fixed requirement per se. If their mood is something, the requirement is different. It is that serious topic of requirements. So, in all that fleeting requirements, you still have to freeze requirements. You still have to identify what should be implemented as a technology and eventually go and use a technology, implement it. But technology is so fast changing that within the changing systems, a few generations of varieties of technologies are involved. And therefore, I have not written what is the most difficult one in managing this. It is the skill of the people that actually is under test. One, for the changes that are happening, the speed at which it has to be done. Two, within one single system for which a change would have been proposed, there are enormous amount of technologies which have been changed in the last 1 decade or even 5 years. And the people who are actually working in that system, working with that system, really do not have exposure to all those 5 year changes that have happened. So the skill required, the knowledge required, the amount of tenacity of the people to actually implement the change is quite high. So all these have changed. So has change management changed? Of course, yes. The, when I said in the previous page that actually nothing has changed, it is stable guidelines, elaborate guidelines, stable process, etc. If you sit from inside and think, it is the routine change management process. You'll have to go and find out the change requests, see who has approved, is there a business requirement, is it changed, etc., etc. All that is the steps that are there are stable truly. However, the amount of things that are moving at this juncture is what is causing the change to be difficult, and therefore auditing the change requires a thorough understanding of what all factors have gone in for this particular change. And thus I lay emphasis on the auditors positioning of what auditors thinking of what exactly should be looked at. There are thousands of changes happening to many systems in the organization. All are being thoroughly reviewed by everybody in the hierarchy. Yet the changes, when they hit the production, not more than 20% are successfully being implemented without at least one time rolling back. They may eventually go in production after a revision to the change based on the rollback or where it failed, which also means something else. We will talk. But first go successful change into production is very limited. um, if you take extreme examples, then it may be difficult to contest. Does it happen to say Amazon 80% fail? No, it may not be true. So we are talking of organizations which we are in general dealing. I'm not going to look at the big five type of organizations in discussing this. How they are doing is completely different. They have reached there after certain amount of technology implementation and automation into the entire change management process and certain methodology changes, which we will discuss. Let's face what actually is the root cause of where this is all my ideation of what should change in the thinking process for an auditor. By the way, the last 2 years and almost the 7 to 8 engagements that I have, audit engagements that I have done in Indian market, so I will be very specific, have been for the top 3 companies in their industry. Uh, and so when I'm seeing them as sample, because I am a random guy as in I'm a random auditor, and the organizations that I got to audit are also random. It's not my choice or they didn't choose me. And so the sample is that I have gone through 4 5 organizations, have done about 7 8 engagements of audit, and all are top 1 2 3 organizations in their sector of the market. So from after seeing that, my concerns about organizations change management have only multiplied. Prior to that, I used to be feeling that I am in a certain very specific customer location, or my own employer is very fuzzy like that, etc., etc. I used to put it to reason as very specific. Possibly other organizations are fine. I am in this location, so it is like this. This is the conclusion I used to draw. But the more I see the organizations, the more I feel that it is chaotic in general, which means that there is much to do. So, what is the loss with this? We will come to that. Now, operations is the face of the organizations. This is a going concern concept that everybody knows, most of you understand, and many of the chartered accountants have been breathing their life only in that context throughout their life, who are in this session. Now, why do I say this? Why do I say this? Actually, our organization is only recognized as an organization or a brand by the operations. So let me put what is the organization sample that I am. What is the organization sample that I have taken? I'm not looking at a say service organization. Let us take an example of a business organization, say a bank. So the uh, operations, which means that what is customer facing is what is operations, and that operations is the face of the organization. Whatever be its backend, however great the backend be, or however poor the backend be, it is the operations that is actually creating the brand in the minds of the customers. If it does not do well, the brand value falls. If it does well, the brand value increases. So everybody's focus, top from board down to the last employee, their whole focus is all the management jargon that is used is only to ensure that the operations are done well. Board has strategic role, governance role, etc. For what? For conducting the business well and making the face of the organization look good, which means that the operations have to be run well. That's the mandate of the board. Same is the senior executives, senior management that exists. Their mandate is that the operations are all run well. You may sit in a risk department, you may sit in a compliance department and not having any eye on the operations, but what you do is only to ensure that the operations are happening properly. So that first factor has to be understood. Second, it must be stable and protected to be so. That's the actual rule of the game for everyone. So all people do is only that they ensure that it is stable and protected. Now, this is zealously controlled by people who are accountable and responsible for maintaining the stability, integrity, which is what I mentioned away, that the whole thing is about the stability or integrity of the production environment. I use the word operations because technically speaking, that is a production environment. However, what they are using is for the operations. So those who are accountable are all very religiously following every norm, everything to protect, control the operations environment. That is what is the mandate of the going concern, because their face is looked at by a world, and that is to be stable. Now, what is happening on the other side? I just didn't move. I'm in a share mode. How do I remove this strip on top? Is there a way? I'm not able to. Yeah, now it's gone. Thanks. Okay. What is the contradiction in our thinking process when change has to be governed in operations? Is that this change is coming to the operations from elsewhere. Operations by itself is not changing anything. They are actually doing operations, which means if the system is as it is, they work as it is, and service as it is. If the service is poor, it is a system that is responsible for whatever service is possible, apart from the people who are disposing of the service. So the systems that are coming into the operations are what have come, and they are stable, they are maintained, they are protected. The change is being brought from outside. The requirement could have come from the customers, from the operations, from the IT, from the regulator, from the business, from the market. That's all fine. But the system change is coming from outside, and it is being pushed into the operations. So on the continuum of change, the impact is on the operations. Can you mute, please, whoever? You're having 2, 3 speakers at the same time. Thank you. So, sorry. Thanks, Leela. I Next is that the sensitivity to change is highest to the operations, which we are understanding because we are debating that. So, nothing should be changed adversely. That is the fundamental principle. So, sensitivity to change is very high word being used. So they are very sensitive to change, which means change should not be done. Whereas the projects that are being done outside are not as sensitive to change. If you understand today's world, will understand it more. Erstwhile, they would have been far more frowning to change in the project also. Today, over the last decade or a decade and a half, close to 2005 onwards, ever since the technology change has happened significantly, moving away from 3, 4 areas, particularly traditional development life cycle, moving away into agile, and even also moving into DevOps, computing from on-premise to the cloud, methodologies supporting these also being technology oriented with tools based support for execution of all the implementation, whether it is development and etc. in integrated development environment, on agile or a DevOps platform, or the moving into the cloud, all have caused lot of changes being done in the project mode. And these are, I wouldn't call uncontrolled, but they are not very structured in their approach. And the approach has been too relaxed to make it um, good for the operations. So let us park this for a moment. I'll come back again to this topic. So perfection of implementation of change, very sensitive in case of operations. Projects are not at all sensitive. They are going on changing. They make changes in the name of any methodology or no methodology or uncontrolled changes happening in the projects, to the extent that the end result that should go into the production is not in anybody's comfortable control. Those are the major topics on implementation. With those things, what should happen? The focus of control has gone more and more towards the governing of operations, since everybody wants to ensure that stability and integrity of the operations is not disturbed. All the effort, all the focus, all the reviews are centered around operations so that the gatekeeping is done well. So in that context, the entire IT budget of organizations, almost, this is a hypothetical number, though I'm somewhere aware. However, any number is valid here. Projects run on a 20% IT budget, and operations of the organizations get devoted by 80% of the IT budgets. So approximation, you may say 30, 70, 60, 40. I don't mind any number there. However, because the focus is much on operations and it has to be protected well, the budgets also go there mostly. Before this, I said the sensitivity to change being in operations. While the majority of the changes or the volume of changes and the lack of care for the way changes are made, the sensitivity to change in projects is all low. And so the gatekeeping is too high. Also, from the budget I derive, also I see that team size, effort, cost, all are enormously loaded towards the operation. In addition, all annual maintenance contracts, management overheads are on top and over of all these project costs to actually move into the operations and run on a constant 20% overheads of AMCs and management overheads, close to 25%. AMCs themselves are generally averaging 18 to 20%, and management overhead could be anywhere up to 5 or 5% approximately. So it is almost 25% of the cost of the operations goes to the maintenance of this stuff, apart from making all those changes and operations. Now this itself is a story where complexities are being dealt. I would like to possibly move next slide. Possibly I mentioned. I'll come back to another slide. But what is happening right now is world's focus is on operations. Impact of projects on operations is not really understood except at the gatekeeping. At the gatekeeping, the operations will allow it to go inside with a lot of controls. Changes in technology hit first the project environments. Even if the change is required in the operations, it is in the form of a project before it comes into the operations. Therefore, all the project members are dilly-dallying with, dabbling with the new technologies, trying to understand the change. They do not have an idea of how to implement this change in the production, nor they understand the discipline required to maintain the stability and integrity of the operations using this new technology, which is what we all call as untested technology in the development parlance. It's not yet been very well tested, so we will wait. But wait is one way, but still projects are taken up with the changed technologies. Risks first hit the projects because all these changes are technologies are being used and projects are being built. It's learn as you go, do as you learn. All these concepts are implemented in the name of whatever you call agile today, and eventually all these move into the gate where the production guy will stop you to review the whole process. Discipline required in the operations is not very well imagined nor understood during acquisition. I use the holistic word acquisition for all the processes, whether it is development, outsourced, in-house, vendor developed, all these put together, new technology, old technology. any development acquisition, how should it be working in operations is not in the project objectives. They have business requirement. The business requirement is generally functionality and possibly performance and possibly security. But workflow is not very well thought through. The stability with which the system should behave, the operation. I am saying on a majority of the occasions, the project teams are vague here. While it may have been documented, it may have been listed in the architecture design documents. The architect of the project may be aware of it. The CTO, CIO may be aware of it. The team that is majorly working in the project is not one aware, two knowledgeable, nor skilled. All put together, you have a team of people who do not understand how the operations have to be performed. However, the governance regulation focus is completely on operations. It should be done this way, it should be controlled this way, the access is like this, the security has to be this, the availability should be this. All prescriptions are made by policy, by governance of the organization, or by regulation with operations in mind. So many changes are happening outside which are not being governed sufficiently, are understood for governance well, and yet operations is what is expected to be governed, and change management is what is being audited by us as auditors. Now we have to understand how this change management should be audited. If you take up now, so the question is, are we solving the right problems is one question, are we solving the problems right is the second question, and both questions have to be understood and addressed. The important point is when the auditor is going to the project, for the audit, they directly possibly ask for what are all the changes that have happened in the last audit year, 21-22 or 2021, whatever that year is, and look at the dump and look at the classification. There is a software, there is a process. Everybody has a workflow software, everybody has a change management software, a tracking software, and weekly updates, etc., etc. And what the auditor would get is all the changes, statistics, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 changes that have gone in for the hundreds of applications that are there in that organization. And there are some major, minor, all those classification, and everybody has a rule of change management. Everybody is in every organization has its own rules of change management, what will have to be the workflow and what documents should be provided for approving at every stage of workflow, etc. And all these changes are being done, but the governance of the change management is pathetic, the least I can say. If they all go, I have seen organizations that roll back almost every alternate change. So and I'm talking of very large companies within India, technology implementing, and they are known as technology forefront runners of that business with technology. So I'm not even having any doubts that they are some mom and pop shops. Never. So they are all technology companies, but it is because the change management is not very well organized in the company because of the my way of putting it is because of the importance or lack of importance that is given to the change management process. Since it is bureaucratic, it looks deridable, and then they really don't bother to respect that process. If they don't respect the process, they should actually change the process the way they want, but they don't change the process. They change the work they do, the way they do. However, they don't change the process. So the compliance levels of expectations between governance, regulation, and actual implementation is a valley. There is no compliance whatsoever. It is very, very discomforting every time you do change management, and actually it should not be. So why? So what are the major areas? All these areas that are there in the life cycle of the projects. And when I'm saying projects and SDLC, I don't mean application alone. The infrastructure, all the technology components that are actually going through these changes, on the databases, the network, servers, infrastructure, security, the firewalls, routers, all the changes. I'm not questioning one part of it. Change is happening outside, and that change is getting pushed into the operations. And that is what is the crux of the problem. For example, um, modules are going to be added as the requirements are changing to the existing application. New modules, new functionalities are being added. However, the integration is not thought through. The architecture is not thought through. Probably everybody jumps at picking up a developer and giving them the brief requirements and asking them to start coding. Now, everyone is doing the same activity in every organization. The key documentation, technical documentation that is actually at the heart of the system is not at all being maintained nor developed initially, possibly, and never maintained sufficiently. Why change management becomes very important is will be known only when disasters strike, which is a very, very crucial factor that I wanted to bring up. All the technology changes, the change management auditor has to think through for every change that happens, and he is picked up as a sample. Does it have an impact on disaster recovery? Has to be one of the key factors. And I am not seeing that in any audit checklist for now, nor auditors asking questions about how how that particular change gets implemented in DR site is one dimension. Does it have changed the other implementations of whether security or performance, eventually causing possibly the hogging of memory and eventually bringing down a server of tests of performance, tests of security, tests of disaster recovery are not being conducted on all the changes that are being done. Impact analysis is pathetic, as good as non-existent. Business tells in one sentence what is requirement and in another sentence what is the actual impact analysis. Now that impact analysis questions by technology team are almost zero. They do not ask any questions as to where all this particular change will have impact, and if so, what are the technology impacts of those changes. I am not talking of very small changes. I am also talking of adding modules to systems. Maybe if I got disconnected, there was an incoming call. I disconnected just now. uh, am I back?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. um, so I am generally not a person who uses the word pathetic. Let me put it very bluntly, because words coming from an auditor's mouth will be seen more seriously than they are actually. So we should be careful, and I am careful. I do not use such words even in classes to describe something. Even in a discussion with another auditor, I hesitate to use any extreme language, extreme words. Today I am using it because you guys have to understand that it is considered as a routine work. Small boys are sent there for picking up data, doing statistical analysis. All that is fine. I'm never questioning that part. A junior boy goes there, gets all the data, reviews whatever he can. However, the engagement manager or the senior guy who is tasked with the responsibility of change management audit, I would hold him fully accountable on whatever happens or doesn't happen in the audit process. Simple. So, all the auditors who are seniors here also are in that same similar roles. So, I understand how it goes. So, statistical analysis, I have seen previous audit reports in all these engagements of wherever I went, and every report in every organization, in every audit, by every auditor who is never repeated in all my engagements, all the guys give the same statistical report. Not that they copied. That is one of the ways of telling the change management team that changes are waiting in your queue for 250 days. Major changes are 25% of it, and the business has never reminded you about the requirements. And why did business raise if it can wait 257 days beyond the expected complete date? So there is no actual need for this particular change, is my derivation. If a change is not required in 30 days after the scheduled delivery, it means it really is not required. It was a hypothetical change, and they are a time has been lost, that the change is no more in demand and the business is not even reminding. So the the exercise is all futile if the purpose is not being met. Purpose here, if it is only timely delivery only tells the purpose, then absolutely you should agree that it is timely delivery that is important in the change. If it is not important for time, then business should be asking, technology should be demanding, why did you raise this change if you don't have a need? Now, I see the statistics of tens of thousands of these being done from the workflow software approved by management and weekly being reviewed by the highest authorities. That there are so many changes being discussed. Every week, every fortnight, I see business heads and IT head sitting in front of, I almost say CIO or CEO also, of prioritizing the changes to ask for the what should be done. While on the statistical review, it shows that the changes are all waiting and actually no business is following up on any change. So this is a big contradiction, that it is all this, the flow is being decided, defined by statistics, but actually the business is struggling to get the changes into the production. IT is struggling to make those changes happen. Yet the changes are not moving. Means the priorities are not right set. Skills are not right presented. So operations, if those have to move into operations, the number of people should be working. I have seen, I have in a statistical analysis, which I also tried to do and understand, one person is doing 1.5 change in a month. That's the productivity as per me from the data. And there are 257 days average delay on every change that is still waiting in the change queue. Why is this one person doing only one change for or 1.5 change in a month? Either is not and across the applications. So what it also means is that the skill set required in the operation, in the change management work, is technology so um, disparate. Disparate technologies are there, with individuals not being skilled to take up anything across technologies, and changes are waiting, business is waiting, teams are doing what they can do, but change is not happening, which means it is about management of the change. So it is no more technical topic. It is a management topic, failure of the management to not conduct change management properly, which makes it change board accountable, IT management accountable, and eventually the board accountable for not doing proper changes in time. So they are in a cycle which is way behind the requirements. While they are waiting on the requirements, the technology changes are all falling onto the technology function, and new technologies are actually being adopted into the organization, and the old changes are all getting buried in the new technologies. So this whole process of what is happening in the technology is also a cause for how the audit should happen. So my suggestion at this stage, let's move and see if I have to. Okay, my suggestion would be that we should stop looking at only what is by defined process, how it should be. ISACA guidelines, everything are valid, but you should sit inside the operations function and think, if a change comes, is it very well done, well defined change that is being implemented to be brought into the system, which means all the projects that are actually making, the case I made is that all these deficiencies in the management and governance of projects and technologies have to be fixed to say that change will be done well. So the budgets that are there focused on operations have to see projects as the actual risk makers of the organization. The most risks are being constructed. Constructed is a creative word, unfortunately, wrongly being constructed and being pushed to operations. And operations is going through all this actual trouble. Business is not getting what value it should get out of the changes that should happen, because several technologies are being adopted into the technology which are not having a mapping skill set within the organization, and then they are not able to manage the amount of changes that new technologies that are pushed into operations are bringing into the system. So skill management is poor, adoption of new technology is wrongly being done, and then after pushing somehow into the operations the newer technologies, changes are overwhelming the teams that are sitting in the maintenance jobs. And who sits in the maintenance? Probably the junior most guys are being pushed into doing the maintenance jobs of the various systems. So where is the auditor's role in this whole set? That is where I am asking you to think differently when you go and do change management audit. You have to do the statistical analysis, which I have listed here at the end. I deliberately listed it at the end. You have to see a sample set of changes and go through the whole process of approval and whether the things have been done in time, segregation of duties, of environments, who did what, all rules of what ISACA says, what governance of the organization says, what regulator says, should be reviewed. No questions asked. However, the bigger problem is not inside this. It is already created and existing outside, and you as an auditor are not able to catch that, or not wanting to catch, because you do not have any mandate to go there. I am here to say that you have to link the problems of change management at a gross level to the governance in the organization and how they are not being effectively done. So start at the top. What is the governance of change management? So there should be a. I had another incoming call that I disconnected. Am I back?
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks. So it is not the change management process is non-existent or something. It is the objectives with which change management should be driven in the organization, that is short. What is the objective of change management? Lesser number of unauthorized changes is the declaration. But effectively doing right changes, while it is the declaration, it is not being governed well. So the rollback, the lack of technology, to make that effective change, you need technology and skills that are very controlled. So the number of technologies that are being adopted should be in a very structured fashion. And that structured fashion requires that skills and senior technical guys exist in your organization for those technologies to be driven in the organization. It's not only corporate driving decisions of what technologies to be brought into the organization without understanding the maturity and ability of our own organization. I am talking with reference to technology. So if a technology committee is sitting and saying to an organization's say board, technology board, board itself, technology committee is telling to the board that the world has changed, now it's all about digital transformation. Okay, let's do digital transformation. But it is not a corporate only looked at to be looked at. It is about the total organization that has to be looked at to transform into a digital organization, and the ability of the technology team to drive skills, business knowledge into this use of technology, and then operations being run. And on top of it, when changes happen, do you have ability to manage those changes? Every application that goes into production creates twice the amount of work in implementation, post implementation, and production support. Work in the sense of changes, I mean. Errors again are additional to that. I am not even going to the deficient implementation. If everything is done right, double the work is produced, because lot of business is changing every day. Customer is changing every day. Operations is changing every day. Therefore, change is a constant and it will come back. Now, if it is done erroneously, wrongly, not so correctly, then the amount of change will be far more higher than being only double. Therefore, organizations governance, are you equipped? Are you ready to face all the life cycle with this particular new technology? Has to be questioned at the top when new systems are brought. The third dimension is the amount of integration that is happening outside the organization in the form of being on web, being using APIs, microservices. You have outsourcing, processing itself being done seamlessly across organizations. Now, this is a massive change. Now, this change is not going to be visible in the statistical analysis that an auditor would do if he is doing that. So every change that happens has to be reviewed from the point of view of where all this has impact. If a outsourcing company has given a change and it is part of the sample picked up, and you have understood that this is a critical change that is done to the operations by a vendor who is outsourced with the processing, not just about the change, but about the security policies that are followed in that outsourced organization, the processing guidelines that are being adopted, the regulation that you have to implement and how it has been implemented in the outsourced organization. You are accountable for it. Apart from what are the network transit security issues, how are those being handled? Are they accessing our servers, or they are processing there and passing it through a network? Encryptions. Hundreds of questions should come with one CR in your hand if it is a sample for exposure outside our network. Those questions are also part of the CR. New, apart from that, major changes to the system. When I say new modules are being added, you went into the audit. This is an older application. You have changes. They have made those changes. You picked up 2 samples, completed the audit. Doesn't work. The first question should be how many upgrades have happened to this software, how many major changes have happened, how many modules have been added to this system, even if it is an existing software, and the entire SDLC process has to be reviewed for that particular few questions that are yes, new modules added. Most organizations are going through selection of software because of their migration from manual systems to computer systems, or their older systems have passed their utility, they are migrating, or they are cloud migrating, or they are migrating to newer methodologies. And there are multiple of them going on through the year. So every auditor who is sitting in this room cannot escape a new application audit when change management is being audited. While new application is not a part of your scope, if it is a project audit, it is not a part of your scope, could be some definitions of the engagement letter. However, if the current audit has in scope one of the applications as new, you have to use not just change management, you have to audit as if you are auditing post-implementation review of that particular project which has come for the first time into production. It may have come 9 months back into production, but it is come for the audit for the first time, and hence all new project audit regulations you should apply, which also means that you should have a mandate for that. Starting from that, has the sponsor approved this project? Has the architecture been reviewed and approved? Has the risk committee, technology committee, etc., reviewed, approved this project? What are the requirements? How were security requirements provided to a vendor if it was an outsourced vendor? All these questions are part of that single change. You still have to ask those, get an answer, and most likely, if you are auditing an Indian firm, you wouldn't get an answer for those, and you have to raise objection. Why this objection is important is the governance guys through the audit committee have to understand that they are actually left the back door open, and all the face of the organization is very well decorated, neatly done, regulated, etc., but the operations backdoor, which is this project, is actually not being governed at all. Pathetic software development processes exist in organizations, and they are just being dumped at the change management, and one security lifecycle audit is being done, and I will not talk about it much. It is to me a last stage gatekeeping is going to only help so much. While they may be able to detect several defects that are security aspects with reference to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, there are many features that functions are effective software features that should exist will not be detected by the security lifecycle testing VAPTs that are being done as prescribed by regulators as of now, which includes engineering practices are poor, performance is almost not verified, functionality is very randomly tested. So all these verifications will be part of the change management. Now, where is this defined in change management? Possibly you will find ability to go and highlight a rule and show. Even if it is not, I am saying that your mandate is that you are auditing to ensure the stability and integrity of the production. Is it protected? Are you assuring that it has been protected? Is the question you need to answer. So if you are wanting to assure that stability and integrity of the production is well protected, you have to review whether stability and integrity of production has been in first place ensured by the governance structure, management structure, and the operational procedures. So ignoring the SDLC part and going into change management as if it is some isolated piece of work, which is how it is described. Most of the documentations look like that. All workflow documentation that has been uploaded into all these workflow softwares in the name of change management for level 1, level 2, level 3 types of all changes is crap. All are blank templates or half-filled templates which do not convey anything, starting from business requirements, impact analysis, architectural changes, design. I do not know what source code is there because I don't want to read the source code. UAT, pathetic. Business does not even know what testing has to be done in most of the cases. And then they don't know how to store defects that have come, and they get the same defects again and again. For every new change that has been made, all old defects come up because they don't do any regression testing. Regulators ask only one question at the end. Is the change management process followed? Is the ASLC system for ASLC review done, which includes a VAPT? Is the regression testing done for the application? For all, you get a yes as answer because the documentation says yes and you see yes. You don't have a clue of what has gone into production. And this is what is the actual issue with the entire change management that I see. And therefore, I feel all this has to be reviewed for every new system that has come. You are not a project auditor. Please understand, if every time this question comes up when I am in classes also, how do we do project audit, how do we do operations audit, I don't care the difference. If you are doing change management audit, all the changes that are coming into production are in some form, some project, whatever be the form of it. If it is coming first time for audit, or it is a new project which has been announced to you as part of your engagement, in either case, you are going to do as if you are a post-implementation reviewer. You are not doing a project audit full-fledged. You can't go and review design documents. You can't go on reviewing requirements, whether they have been complete, whether all that story may not be possible. But every new change that is there, you need to ask business case. You need to ask the requirements document. At least they have been authorized, approved changes that are done. Guys don't have a clue, including up to the risk head of the organizations. They don't have a clue of what has happened to which change. Even if you tell it is all, you could go and file level 1 audit remark, only then they will start reacting. Until then, all these changes are only flimsy. How they are managing their production systems, this could be your bigger question. That they are struggling there and they are doing it without any documentation, without any prior project documentation is all. I'll foresee that and I'll understand that. I'm okay, but I'll log my complaint of level 1 audit remark observation. However, what I want to say is the piling up of all these lack of processes and methods that should be there to verify in the view of so many changes that are hitting the whole organizations. Your value is in pointing out that change management is not being well done. That's where is my suggested approach. If there is something else, I do not know if you will get some of the indicators also. While I wanted to bring up a couple of them, unauthorized changes you won't find. There will be deficient changes. That's the problem. Unauthorized change is 0. No organization shows an unauthorized change because it is all authorized. Blindly, everybody is approving okay on the workflow software. What they are reviewing is only they know. I do not understand that. Then unplanned outages. this is another area which you need to be very, very watchful. And when you look for the change, every application, two topics have to be reviewed while change is being reviewed. One, the rollback plans. If they are not there, bash them. The rollback plans are not being implemented, but they are doing rollbacks. Please understand the difference. Every change is causing some damage to the production. They go and ask the operations guy, it is not working, they'll roll back, they change it, etc. They don't have a rollback plan on record, but they do the rollback and then eventually implement, which means it is a unplanned outage after production, you may say, but it is very, very success rate wise, it is very poor implementation. They do not test it sufficiently. They do not have record of any testing, and rollback itself is verbally being managed in many organizations. And then emergency changes. This also is not on record, not available, most of the organizations. So you will find it as zero, whereas the guys are rolling back and doing. One other flaw, before I go to the next slide, and which is the last slide, one other flaw that I have found is application functional issues raised from operations and causing changes to the system, applications is software, are not being recorded as production defects at all. So if you go and look at the MIS reports, you will not get any production defects. They'll raise it's change request for every change that has to be done. So production defects, which would have been an indicator, is now completely erased from the operating change management process. What do? They raise another CR. They make the business or operations guy raise another CR for the defect that is now visible, because it is defect there, not as caused due to the change that is implemented, but another defect has come, raise a CR, and the CR will be fixed now. So everything is being passed under the hood as if everything is CR. Production defects, there is no such statistic called production defects. There is no such number called IT incidents. So all IT incidents, application incidents are being shown as nil, and all production defects as nil, which is almost being almost lying. There are defects, they are rolling back. And in an interview with a CIO, the CIO, I asked, you guys seem to be doing very well. There are no rollback plans. I was very provocative in saying that in a meeting. And the CIO blurted out saying, what, no rollback plans? Every day we do half a dozen rollbacks. He just made a sweeping remark. And I pulled that as a statement of evidence for me and put it in the audit report that these guys do not document rollback plans while they do rollbacks. Even if a one-line rollback has to be written by the plan in the plan as part of the change request, they write rollback to the previous state. That is the statement they default write if they have to write by force. What scripts should be used, what methodology should be used, how should that be executed, who executes it, nothing. Whether they will require a backup, if backup is not there, where they will go, nothing is written, no clarity in rollback. Anyway, much of it is not documented, first of all. That's a rare occasion where I saw 1 or 2 times rollback plan is to roll back to the previous stable state. This is the last slide. I wanted to bring up this point at the end deliberately, delayed project implementation. One of the most important, I started with something called projects versus operations. Risks are in projects, technology changes are in projects. However, sensitivity to the operations is not there in the projects. They do not understand the sensitivity of what. Just a moment, I'm going to that slide so that somebody who may not recall. Yeah, this slide. The sensitivity to change is lower in projects. Perfection to implementation is lower in the projects, whereas it is very, very highly required in the operations. Now, if that is the way the whole projects are, naturally there will be more and more delayed project implementations. If you go and look at any project plan of any project implementation, it is nowhere near the schedule. First of all, I'll find it great if I get a full-fledged plan implemented. However, where there is a plan, it's way out of time, way out of schedule. All this because they have very, very poor planning, very unrealistic plan, poor resources which have no skills in the projects, and I'll put poor skills in the resources, because I see mismatch between technologies being used or multiple technologies required, but having skills of very less narrow spectrum. All that causes the unrealistic estimations and therefore unrealistic development of dates and schedules. And on top of it, every change that is happening in the project is not formally done through a change management process, even after development and unit testing is done. Please understand, I shifted completely to the other side. In the development life cycle, when project changes are happening during the development phases and in testing phases, the changes are not being implemented in a formal method. The developer does it, they themselves do everything. So they do not understand the significance of formal change management process in the project life cycle properly. And when they move this application to production, they get a shock of their life that they would not be having access to such system for making unauthorized changes. Now it becomes unauthorized changes. During project life cycle, they just casually do any change. Whoever is there, they will come and do the change. So this delayed project implementation due to lack of formality, lack of planning, poor skills is what is also a big indicator of coming improper change management in operations. So if a project is delayed, you can be rest assured that that implementation and post-implementation changes will all be very, very haphazardly done. So the whole issue is change being implemented in a controlled way or is it haphazard? Now, do auditors have a role in talking about this high level at a subject when change management is their scope of audit? Of course, yes. That's exactly what I wanted to emphasize today, that governance is the first level at which you have to go about it. It includes the CIO and CEO. To that extent, I would put them along with the governance while they are part of senior management. And all the IT management, the number two, so under the CIO and the CIO put together, are all to be bunched in all improper implementations that happen for the purpose of change management. Any schedule delays that happen will eventually cause haphazard change management, because after schedule delays, they will fix the solutions into the production, and quick fixes will result in intense change management at the start of the project while the operations is going through the trouble of facing this project, which is all quick fixed. So there will be massive trouble. And so when you go to audit, you also should ensure when a new project is in audit for the first time, you have to go and interview the operations in charges of that particular software and get their feedback, since post-implementation review is not implemented in most of the organizations after implementing newer systems also. And hence, you actually should interview them to take their feedback. And if it is possible, you are authorized to interview customers with the permission or with the not support, with the coordination by the operations staff, which means, for example, if that organization has some customer head in the corporate or a branch head where you are auditing, that branch head, you should ask that I want to speak to two customers who are using this system. And in front of him, you could ask the questions as to their feedback on the new system. And that, along with the operations teams, operations here, I am talking of the likes of data center operations guys who run the operations, along with any branch operations, if it is branch level type of softwares. So I think, yeah, that's all from me. I did not want to be walking on the same beaten path of change management. I wanted to bring up things that are actually picturized pink, but actually they are red. That's the sad state. And as auditors, you have a very, very important role. Change management will generally be the part of role of every auditor for any major organization. So if that is there, your thinking process and your implementation process has to be far more mature, broader, and the key word here is stability, integrity of the production environment. On the auditors and management side, the key word is effectiveness. What is the benefit of change management that was embarked upon by this management? Did they achieve? Are they achieving? You are going to give them the opinion. You have to share your opinion if it is very bad, and share in the report, as well as have a discussion with the senior management. Definitely, not everybody may get a board director to present or audit committee member to present the report. But senior management, even though they are auditees, don't hesitate to tell your 2 cents to them about what is the quality of change management and what is the likely future of their operations due to the way they are doing the change management. Now I am open. Sorry, non-stop. I talked so much without halting. Go ahead with any questions that anything is there. Even outside this, doesn't matter if it is connectable to this. I will see if we can answer.
Suri,
Thank you.
There are 2 questions for you. One is in high any tool for claiming statistics, and last few organizations where employee strength I have audited are not aware of this. So in the chat,
I didn't.
You check up the chat, Suri.
Oh, in the chat it is there. I am going through the chat now. Any source for claiming statistics? Claiming as in my claiming 80%, etc. Is that the question, Sridhar? Sridhar, if you can unmute and tell me which statistics, the statistics I am telling, or you're asking how do I get change management statistics in the organization? What is the question? Okay, Sridhar, if you ask, I will be able, okay, for both. On the 80-20, I told if it is not 80-20, it is 70-30. Most organizations where I have worked, participated in budgets. That's the proportion of cost of projects versus operations. Operations take a lot of effort and money, and naturally, because they have to support the whole organization's activities. And 20%, 20 is on the high side. Actually, I'm myself saying 2080 itself is very high to 20 on projects. But if you are talking about get the statistics of the number of changes, etc., the workflow software, you need to always ask for the access to that software to gather the number of changes in the financial year. View only, read only, auditor only access will be there for that. You will need to get that. Second, the audit period data statistics will be very, very interesting. You will get furious that the fellows are not working. That's the conclusion you will draw by looking at the statistics. Because who is working in this organization, everything is pending. That's how you will feel when you see the statistics. However, that statistics will be available. It's only one small area. Once you have to do a good sampling by application, by technology, by varieties of parameters that you see as likely issues, by technology, by being intranet-based systems, web-based systems. Varieties of samples have to be picked up across the applications that you are scoped to audit, and you have to thoroughly review those for the entire workflow as regulated as organization policy is for verifying the whole change management. In that process, that is where I am pitching in, saying if it is pertaining to a newer application or a new module that is implemented, you have to go back to all the documentation that is supposed to be there as part of the project. Okay. Rajneesh says, last few organizations where employee strength is less than 200 that I have audited are not aware of IT scorecard. It's a general term. Possibly they may not. Many organizations won't know. I will come to that. They were surprised to know that there is something like a scorecard can be used to gauge whether the IT infra was being used effectively. Absolutely. Lack of awareness is also a big concern. Fully agree with you. However, technology, yeah, I will share this PPT, whoever asked that. Sharath, I will send it across to Leela, and it could be shared with all. There is no secret. All are public domain documents and data.
Thanks, Surya. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. But prior one, awareness. But when you say staff, I will restrict myself to commenting only on infra staff. But I'm not racist, but I say Indians also are very, very narrow in their focus while on job. Narrow in the focus is restrict themselves to only the given task rather than thinking broadly. Growth mentality has to be there to the IT employee to understand where the statistics will impact, how it will impact, scorecards, measurements, etc. So it's a maturity of the organization activity. It takes a lot of time for organizations to mature. So the auditor is a God-sent opportunity for them. Actually, auditors should use it. If you make a promise to yourself from today, if you go to an audit, at the end of audit, at least you will give them one free advice, which will improve their company, their individuals. You will actually be doing a lot of service to the organization. It is not recommendation. It is not a audit finding, nothing. But you feel this organization is badly lacking in something which you are seeing, and you feel they should improve there. Otherwise, they are actually going to be the way they are, run-of-the-mill, I too ran type of organizations. So you want to say that example, let's take, there are half a dozen in a 200 member company, some 5 developers, 5 development team and 5 infrastructure team will be there. Assume that 10 member IT team is there. Now none of these guys know anything other than what they do every day, according to you. And you think their organization's technology is very, very primitive, or at least should move forward, go into something else. Now that is the only time you can think of a general term to talk to the manager IT and tell that you guys are likely to change the technology. You have to be provocative here, or at least lead. You have to provide a lead. What are your plans for changing the technology? If you ask the manager, he will actually talk it. When he talks and he says few things that they are planning to change next year, when budgets are already approved, etc., you should pick up the time to advise them that your team is now not prepared for that. You have to start educating them or making them do something like mandating each member to complete some certification or some educational course within the next 6 months. So this is not going to be audit comment anywhere. You can't write it. There is no place to write generally such thing. Then you should advise these and go from there. So every place, some new thing will be there in your mind that these guys are lacking and they should improve in this area. You should tell that to the IT in charge, who is an auditee, not anybody else. Definitely as part. And you should say, this is my sincere advice, nothing to do with the audit. You guys are a great organization, as people are managed well, fine. But to growth, you are nowhere near growth if you don't educate yourself.
Hi, Surya, Gopal here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, of course.
So, Surya, it's a wonderful session, and day in, day out, change management challenges are coming out. So is there any governance model like SICOBIT or any specified regulatory which can be referred as part of an observation? Because most of the times when we go to the CIOs or senior folks, they will ask about what is the guidelines or general practices followed globally.
Good.
So what sort of any
Good, very good question. And the reason I mentioned few organizations at the beginning of the slide deck is for that purpose only. Just let me, what I would say, actually the regulators are being very soft in these areas. Let me put it that way. Their regulation is only to the extent of some parts of the change and the process. Actually, the total picture is not covered by the regulator. And to expect a regulator to cover the entire spectrum of change management from technology perspective is also not right. This is the technology team which is actually doing. Actually, they should be more interested in implementing the technical dimensions. However, they are not, whatever be the reason. Now, guidelines of regulator is what the technology team is hiding under. Exactly, they want to do only that much and nothing more. At this juncture, that is the situation. Now, unless you find a proper leadership team, you cannot even give these guidelines which are existing. For example, ISACA standards and guidelines, you are appointed as an auditor only because you are a CISA and a member of ISACA. That is the regulatory instruction, so the auditor is appointed. However, when you quote the ISACA guideline of anything which is not declared by the regulator as a requirement, the IT department does not implement it. You may give the quote, you may give the guideline. If somebody asks you for that, you can always most welcome and give. This ISACA, IIA, COBIT, and in India, you could quote ICAI stuff too. All these three are global in nature, and one is India centric, but each of them have good amount of technical guidelines you could quote, and you don't need to go anywhere. On top of it, I will also advise auditors should not even Google 100 things. If you go to these 4, you have too much of advice, which is you'll actually not overwhelmed, but you will be feeling very happy that so much is there, which is important and can be implemented in a better way. So that scoping of the guidance you should do very well. Then you can pick up any of these and you share them. And I will say these 4 should be sufficient. On top of these, nowadays, because of the cyber security requirements, NIST, OWASP are the other 2 dimensions that I always refer along with these. But every audit I have these folders for reference. I have ISACA, IIA, ITGI, ICAI, and NIST and OWASP, and whatever I require for that audit from those areas, I will come and populate the folders with those guidelines for my reference and what I am doing. But the organization, if they ask or if I want to guide them, I'll give them. There are many CISOs and CIOs who have asked me, what books do you read on this? What exactly did you read to come to this conclusion? How did you catch us on this when regulator is different and you are doing something else? So I had to share them NIST guideline. I talked to them. When some discussions happen very good with CIOs, CISOs. Some places they will be shutting the door to newer advice. You really can't help there, but to follow the regulation. How to squeeze in the important ISACA guideline there to say this is mandated. I generally innovate my thought process, debate with someone or the other, and eventually I'll put them under the umbrella of the regulation. I am being very frank here. If I just quote ISACA and write an observation, it gets knocked off straight in the first meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Surya. And it looks like more nowadays, rather than detective part of a change management, is becoming more reactive. Is this statement correct?
Can you rephrase it for me to understand?
No. Predominantly now the CISOs or the IT team are getting into more of a reactive mode than a preventive mode on the change management.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, they are putting across a procedure.
That's exactly what I am saying. That's why it has gone into, everybody is going and talking to production to say how well it should be done. Because you have already created a monkey on the before coming into production. Naturally, it will behave like a monkey in the production. So creating it in the beginning, you should have done so much of good work to ensure it happens well. You should not have so many operational issues. So they are all reactive because they are sleeping over the governance topic in the pre-operations.
Thanks, Surya.
Yep. I am seeing one more question, proposed, implemented to overcome. Very good. Isn't DevSecOps being proposed and implemented in organizations to overcome the problem you mentioned? What do you think? Anant, I am agreeing. That's what I am telling. But they are using, I am not a cynic, but I am telling what is fact here. DevOps itself, Agile itself have been used to not document anything. Is DevOps and Agile wrong? Not at all. They have come to solve a different problem of schedule management and timely implementation and smaller projects being implemented, because the larger the project, the chances of its failure are higher. In the traditional development methodology, that was the issue. Now, Agile DevOps are gradually have come, and they have come in time to overcome this. If you see 20 years ago, these were, while theoretically there, conceptually there, many books were there. Implementation wise, it was not done because technology wasn't there at that stage until close to 2010. I would put 2008-9. DevOps was first time talked in 2009, first time in a public meeting where the speakers were beaten down saying that you guys are crazy, you are unnecessarily prescribing something called DevOps. Actually, they should be in 2 isolated iron curtain departments. Simple. It was that reaction in 2009. So it is just 12 years since DevOps has come. Today, it is one of the major force to actually improve the working of integrated DevOps. But the technology has evolved a lot to support the DevOps. Same is the case with Agile. Agile type of activity, iterative development happened way before. It's not that Agile is invented suddenly now, but post the financial crisis or 2008-10 mode time, the technologies have developed so much that it got implemented, and it is the uptake in the last 5-6 years is the highest. Now, the purpose of those coming is completely different. I have seen CIO writing the audit response. Let me put the audit comment first, given by internal audit of one organization, that Agile is being implemented, no documentation from requirements, architecture, design is actually developed and produced. Code is there in the source code. No change request has been put through the workflow software. Changes are being done. This is the audit remark, and it is an observation. The CIO's office writes the response that they picked up 4 of the principles of Agile Manifesto. We respect people over process. We value systems or delivery over documentation, etc., etc. They have used conveniently to say why they didn't do documentation, why they don't have any system or process. Please understand to what extent they are going. So, does DevOps, DevSecOps, all that will do well? Oh yeah, they will be misused until it bombs. Now it is being, it can help, absolutely. Is it the way all people are doing everywhere? I am not aware. I am not yet aware, but I keep my fingers crossed. I don't even know. And again, I said I am not racist. In India, violation is it gives a kick to the people. They violate to enjoy the violation. So unless the police holds them, no traffic is proper. Same is the case. Process is not there, not followed, not done. It should, unless it results in dismissal from job, things will be like this only. So am I being autocratic and extreme? I'm saying that we are like that, and we are supporting global organizations, global systems sitting in India. So our image, our role, our processes, our systems, our nature, our behavior, all things have to change. They have changed a lot, but the moment these new softwares have come, we are back to the original, which is core. Now, is it helping? Yes, it will help if it is implemented. DevSecOps will help if it is implemented well. That's why I mentioned it in. I have a very, very strong rating to one CIO and one CISO of an organization, saying that the spirit of implementation of the processes in your organization is what actually is required. That's all. Everybody has the process. Everybody is regulated in the same way. Every organization has the same infrastructure. Nobody is differential in their services, in their ratings, in their earnings, in their profits. It is the spirit of implementation of the process they define themselves. And that organization is fantastic. One organization. And I did a one-on-one phone call with the CIO, one-on-one phone call with the CISO to tell that it is this that is making you successful. Don't allow it to come down. So it is the spirit that is important. DevSecOps is again with a spirit. Yes, Leela, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Sarath here. So one last question before we wind up that,
key metrics to.
Shiva was asking about key metrics.
Yeah, I saw that key metrics.
Yeah, throw some light, and then I think we are almost at the
we
end
are
of the time.
What are the key metrics to track performance for change management process? We somewhere mentioned, I mentioned here, while let me pass.
Hey, if you can just give me an opportunity, I'll just rephrase my question. While it is
Please.
related to metric,
Yeah.
see, in our standard process, most of the people understand how the process work, and they know how to get away with the metrics. Say, for example,
Exactly.
unauthorized changes. Okay, now they know how to manage those unauthorized changes, and they will now never allow it to come into the radar.
Correct.
So that's how good they have become right now.
Yeah.
So with this, all these changes, there will be indicators somewhere in the system which will not be directly related to a captured or a tracked metric. So if you can just throw some light as to what are the indicators which we should be looking at when we are doing the scoping of this change management process, so that we hit the right areas when we are auditing.
You actually don't need to search. There will be too many which will be visible, Shiva. Actually, to me, on a larger scale, delay in project implementation is first topic. If it is before the operation, change management, please don't separate project and change too much when change is being discussed. Change, as far as audit is concerned, if a new project is implemented and first time coming to audit, in either case, if it is announced and implemented and given to you as a new project audit, you will do the post-implementation review equivalent. If it is not announced, but it is showing up as new project for audit first time, because in a 3-year cycle audit, this was never picked up. It was a 2-year-old system, but first time being audited by your department, then also you have to behave as if it's a new project and do the whole stuff. And at that stage, you can't question the delayed project implementation if it's a 2-year-old project. Whereas if it is this year implementation, you have all right to ask project management data with reference to what's the schedule, what is the business case, what was the planned implementation, what was the current actual implementation, what was the every stage. You testing how it was done, when it was done, data, etc., etc. Now, delayed project implementation is a time dimension. This itself is one big topic. Same is the question about changes. Delay is not a metric that they really bother. It is done or not done, rolled back, not rolled back, authorized, unauthorized. Such things only they bother. About the timeliness, it is not really taken. But if you pick up that as a point, you will definitely know most of it is delayed. And most of it is delayed is because lot of unplanned changes are being rushed through the software and the project, and that unplanned software is coming up because the improper implementation was done in some other project, and that is causing enormous changes. It is a visible project to the world, and therefore the highest authority also wants to push those changes in the organization, and hence unplanned changes is another one, the major topic. Then the other area is the entire documentation of the SDLC. While it gets tick off because a document exists, it really does not speak anything worthwhile. Rare case, max of 5 to 10% good documents are actually provided along with the change being proposed. 80% are almost one word, no word, blank templates. I am talking not from my audit only. I am reviewing internal audit reports as part of my audit in many places. And each audit report on change management, I am very curious, and I have gone through many. Even internal audit is finding it difficult, struggling to get any documentation of change. They really do not know anything to do. They can't add value. This is what is happening. Meaning, Agile guy says, the CIO says, Agile does not require system of implementation, process for implementation, etc., etc. So to that extent, the symptoms are very, very strong. That's why I'm saying move away from metrics, go to qualitative comments in change management, and hit at the governance topic more. Senior management control. The issue, ultimately, you will want to prove something. The additional effort that is going in change management, due to excessive effort that is put. The amount of rework that is being done, how much can be coming down, and who is the cause, what is causing actually this amount of rework. Those metrics you may have to gather, but they won't be available with you unless you are very friendly with the development team of that project to get all the data. You will not be able to comment. Observation wise, you may want to talk to somebody, but your interpretation will be called judgmental. And if you are sufficiently knowledgeable in that space, I am good at going ahead and making judgmental comment based on the statement provided by the developer in the interview. If you are able to derive that the developer is accessing production server, first write an observation that developers access development and production server. Subsequently talk about what for he is having access that. So you will have to be very careful to get the information. You have to be very consultative to extract the information from the development teams and eventually make your point, but it will all be qualitative initially. Gradually metrics can be introduced.
Okay.
Got it, sir. Thank you.